This is a Thanksgiving story. We are starting this story, New England, Plymouth Colony Pilgrim, 1620. A pilgrim is one who makes a religious journey. There's a quote from William Branford, the second governor of Plymouth. They knew they were pilgrims and looked not much on those things, but lifted up their eyes to the heavens, their dearest country. Okay. So, in contrast to Jamestown, a business venture, Plymouth Colony was founded for religious reasons. On September 6th, 1620, the Mayflower sailed from Plymouth, England, bringing 102 Englishmen, women, and children to found Plymouth Colony in Massachusetts. It was the second permanent English colony in America. About 35 of them were Puritan pilgrims from Scrooby, England, who, after a decade in Holland, were seeking religious freedom in America. These Puritans are called pilgrims because of their religious journey. They also are called separatists because they were separating from the Anglican Church. The rest on board were Anglicans, including John Alden, Priscilla Mullins, Miles Standish. And these Anglicans were seeking economic opportunity. Financed by 70 London merchants, the group had obtained a land grant from the Virginia Company, but a storm blew them off course to Massachusetts instead of Northern Virginia. They anchored off Cape Cod on November 10th, 1620. We're that small. It says, luckily, we have a map of this area. It was drawn out by Captain John Smith in 1614. When we explored the coast from Maine to Cape Cod, he named the whole area New England, and that Indian village across the bay was called Plymouth. Plymouth has a wide harbor. Let's go explore it. Okay, so a problem arose. The Pilgrims were outside the Virginia Company's jurisdiction, so they had no government, no laws, and the Anglicans were upset at the missing Virginia, threatened mutiny against the Pilgrims. See that joke there? They thought they were beyond the law, big parties. Anyway, so still aboard the ship, Pilgrim leaders William Bradford and William Brewster invited all 41 males, Puritan Pilgrims and Anglicans alike, regardless of their religion and class differences. And these men signed the Mayflower Compact. It says women were excluded. They made a compact agreement. All men can enact laws and elect officials, and everyone will abide by the will of the majority. Here is a little blurb. I don't know if that's the whole contract. It can't be. It says, in the name of God, amen, whose names are underwritten, the loyal subjects of our dread sovereign Lord King James, having undertaken for ye glories of God and advancement of ye Christian faith and ye honor of our king and country, a voyage to plant ye first colony in the northern parts of Virginia, do solemnly and mutually ye in the presence of God and one of our another covenant, combine ourselves together in a civil body politic to enact, constitute, and frame such just and equal laws, ordinances, acts, and constitutions and offices for ye general good of ye colony, unto which we promise all due submission and obedience. And the Pilgrims signed first and waited. Would the Anglicans sign or mutiny? And finally, Captain Miles Standish, in charge of the military defense, led other Anglicans into signing. America's first adventure in democracy had begun. The men immediately elected John Carver the governor, the first democratically elected governor in America. And then we got the mystery of Plymouth. The Pilgrims went ashore to explore Plymouth and found where the Indians' village deserted. Where were the Indians? Only their drying cornfields remained. On Christmas Day, 1620, the Pilgrims began to build their settlement of rude huts. Sleet and snow and disease took their toll. Half of them died that winter. On March 16, 1620, an astonishing event occurred that helped save the colony. Samoset, an Abenaki Indian from Maine, strolled into Plymouth and welcomed the settlers. Samoset had learned English while sailing the Maine coast with the English captains, and he now revealed the mystery of Plymouth. Plymouth was once an Indian village of about 2,000 named Pawtuxet. In 1617, a great plague, perhaps smallpox, killed all its people except my dear friend Squanto, who earlier had been captured by an English sea captain and sold as a slave in Spain. He escaped and went to England, where he learned English. In 1619, he sailed back to America, only to find his people gone and his village Pawtuxet deserted. He was grief-stricken. Squanto now lives with Chief Massasoit and the Wampanoag Indians on Narragansett Bay, and I will bring him to see you. It says millions of Americans were killed by these European diseases brought on by the white man, and they had no immunity. When Squanto arrived, he befriended the Pilgrims, and he taught them survival and how to plant corn, a New World plant, and to trap game. He lived with them, even adopted their religion. They were amazed that Squanto had lived in their homeland and spoke English. He became their interpreter and arranged a peace treaty with the Wampanoag Indians. Then Thanksgiving. New England autumn brought a good 210-acre corn harvest, so the grateful Pilgrims, about 60 by then, set aside a day of feasting to give thanks to God. They had invited the Wampanoags and the Chief Massasoit and arrived with 90 hungry Indians. In 1863, President Abraham Lincoln proclaimed Thanksgiving a national holiday. Chief Massasoit and the 90 Wampanoags had such a good time, they stayed for 3 days of a feast, games of skill and chance. They're having a Thanksgiving feast. Now we know what happened to Uncle Louis. That's about the turkey, I guess. So Plymouth Village was a free enterprise. By 1627, Plymouth was a thriving village of about 200. At first, settlers had owned land collectively, but when complaints arose because some worked harder than others, private ownership of land was allowed in 1623, making all hands very industrious. Plymouth had learned the lessons of Jamestown. People worked harder when they owned their own property. By working hard at farming, fishing, and fur trading, the Pilgrims earned enough money to buy out their London investors in 1627 and became a self-supporting and independent, the self-governing Commonwealth. By 1643, Plymouth Colony had 10 towns. Each elected 2 representatives to the legislature called the General Court, which enacted colonial laws, and each held democratic town meetings where all the freemen could discuss and vote on local affairs. In 1621, Plymouth Colony elected a 32-year-old William Branford as governor, a man of energy, courage, and wit. He served for 30 years. Based on the Democratic Reformation doctrine, priesthood of every believer. Each church congregation was independent, holding yearly elections to choose its pastor and other offices. This democratic practice in the church government became the model for New England's local civil government, the town meeting. Plymouth and New England towns lived at peace with New England Indians until 1670, except for a defensive attack against the, quote, Indians in 1637. But by 1675, New England population of 40,000 doubled that of the Indian population and had taken so much Indian land that Chief Massasoit's heir, Metacomet, called King Philip by the Puritans for his princely ways, and warned that I am little remains of my ancestors' domain, and I am resolved not to see the day when I have no country. Then came King Philip's wars. Okay. I mean, we can keep going, just going and going and going and going, but this was kind of just really about Thanksgiving.